Hello, and welcome along to the stream tonight. So, the intention of tonight's stream is hopefully to continue where we picked off, to continue to pick up where we left off last week, is what I was trying to say. So, last week we were working on getting the Visual Studio extension for Cake working in the new 2022 preview of Visual Studio. We were following along on an article that was written that helped us create the project structure that's needed. So the way I understand it is that in the minute, because of the underlying kind of fundamental changes in between Visual Studio 2019 and Visual Studio 2022, we have to create a completely separate Visual Studio project to house that 2022 version of the extension. So to facilitate that, what we did was hey Nils in the chat room, welcome along. What we did was we created this shared project and we moved all of the C# assets into that shared project. We created a new cake.visualstudio.2022 project and referenced that shared project, and then we left in the original project, we left only the assets that were specific to that project, and then we replicated or we created the ones that we needed to in the new project with linked files to the assets. And where we left last week, if you recall, was we had things working. We were generating a V6 file that was installable in Visual Studio 2022, and we were able to create a new project that was here's a Cake module and here's a Cake add-in. But the way that we had gotten that to work is in the new V6 manifest, we only had a subset of the assets that are included in the original Visual Studio extension project. Now, the reason there was only a subset was because one of these didn't work and it caused everything else to break. So my kind of what I was going to do tonight was I was going to attempt to put more of these back into the manifest file, regenerate the V6, and basically spot the difference until something breaks. So unless there's any other bright ideas about how to proceed, that's what I'm going to do. So my gut tells me is we've added in all of the templates and all the templates work. So my gut was then going to try to take in all of these nutkeg assets and to see whether they work. So if I have the feeling if one works, they'll all work. If one doesn't work, then they're all not going to work. So I'm going to take all of these nutkeg assets and I'm going to add them into the new project assets section, and I'm going to see what happens. And hopefully, once we rebuild this, it'll continue to work, because part of me thinks the most likely thing that's failing is something in the C# side of things where we're creating menus, adding commands, etc. Part of me thinks that these ones are going to be broken, but I guess we'll wait and see. So if we go back over here and we attempt to build this, we should get a V6 file that we can double click on to install into our Visual Studio 2022 instance, and hopefully that will continue to work. So let's find out. How's everyone doing in the chat room anyway? Any news to report? Any happenings that we need to talk about? So that succeeded. So if we go into the project folder, so we're going to go here, open folder explorer here. We go into the bin, debug, and then we look at this. I believe that is the one we want. I've just double clicked on that to prompt the installation into 2022. That will most likely need to close this, so let's just help it along. in the process. So the functionality that was there last time was the creation of the projects. So let's see if that's still there and whether the nutkegs come along for the ride as well. Now I know that Nils had an idea regarding the templates that we're using, and the idea is that potentially we can share the templates that we're using between the different IDEs that we support. So currently we have support for Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, and Rider, but they all kind of do things slightly differently in terms of how they create those templates. So there was a suggestion that we can combine those. I'm seeing here that all of the cake projects are still there. So that looks promising. Now that V6 was generated tonight, wasn't it? Today's the 16th, yeah. So this V6 is the newly generated V6. So it does look like my suspicion was correct. So if we go into manage extensions and then let's uninstall that one again. What do you mean slightly nil? Sorry, what do you mean? As in they all do things differently? Or slightly differently? Slightly being the optimum word there, probably. Yeah. So the premise is fundamentally the same. That what we want to be able to do is to create a project or a collection of files that help with the development of cake projects. But yeah, the way that that's done on Visual Studio Code, the way that that's done on Rider, the way that's done on Visual Studio is different. And there was a suggestion that we could change how that's done to make it easier to reconcile those. So I'm going to pick up these last 4 assets here, and I'm going to put them in here. And this is either going to work, or it's going to fail in the same way that I think it failed. I think I remember it failing last week. Oh, Manfred, sorry for the delay. Had to do a quick evening run. So how far did you run tonight then, Manfred? So for those that don't know, Manfred and I are part of a .NET Runtime, .NET Runtime Garmin running challenge, and this month's challenge is to run over 100 kilometers. I can't remember what I'm at so far. We're about halfway through, and I think I'm on track. But there's a couple of folks in the challenge who have already completed the 100-kilometer challenge for the month. So credit goes to them, but it's like I just can't keep up with them. No chance of catching up, Gary. You lied to me when you told me about your weekly. No, I have not lied at all. I am still following my Garmin coach Amy and doing what she tells me. So I'm only doing the 4 runs that she tells me. So the longest run that I've seen from one of the participants was a 30-kilometer run he did. He's currently training for a marathon. So I'm nowhere near where he's at. My longest run I think is like 12.87 kilometers or something. But his longest run is a 30-kilometer run. So I've got no intention of trying to keep up with him. But I think 100 kilometers is achievable. Let's put it that way. So with that in play, If we now do File, New Project again, they're still there. Why are they still there? I didn't think it worked. So does that mean we've now got... Forget exactly where the build cake build. So we need to open a project. So File, let's open one of the modules that we created. So build. The cake build elements are not there. So what are we missing when it comes to new project? Okay, so the templates are there, but the other functionality, for example, the build cake build menu structure, are not. So what do we need to do? And Nils is saying the last time I went out running, I fast walked like 6 kilometers or so. But that's where we all start, Nils. I mean, I can say at this point, I can say that I last night I ran, and when I say ran, around 7 minutes per kilometer. I ran for 12 kilometers doing that. But 10 weeks ago, when I started the course, I struggled to run 2 kilometers. Maybe not even that. So it is quite amazing how quickly your body adapts to what you're asking it to do. But I have found that the training schedule that I've been following has been useful in terms of encouraging you to go out, put it that way. Okay, so this one, when the V6 is loaded into 2022, we don't have the menu structures. So we're missing something when it comes to the build menu. So if we search here for the text cake build, let's see where it starts and where we can find it. Keep moving this, I don't mean to. So where's the self? Here we go. So in the metadata for the VS command table, VSCT, that's where the button exists. And the VS command table is referenced from where? We're looking here then. VS command table is referenced, or direct reference to it. Oh, now hold on. On one of the, oh no, it is there. So VSCT compile include is the metadata of VSCT, added as a link. I don't see anything there that would suggest that it hasn't been included. So have a look to see some of these other things are included. So in our, we have some snippets. So if I do a build, cake build, let's add new item, and let's search in here for cake. That gives us a cake build script. We go over to our 2022 instance. I come over here and do add item. I search up here for cake. What does that give me? That gives me that as well. Okay. Let's do a cake.build. Well, that looks promising. It's got our icon as well. It's got that. So if I come in here and do a task, how do we get snippets to appear? Go over here. No solution items then. Build.cake. I never checked that. So the build.cake icon isn't appearing, but the icon is appearing here. And if I do task here, that doesn't give us it either. How do we do? You don't happen to know, Nils, do you? How you would add I'm fairly sure that functionality does exist. Let's have a look and see if it's documented. So extensions. Documentation. Operations. There's this over. Oh, Nils is suggesting that most of the snippets are called cake something. So available for all cake files. Okay. So if we do cake hyphen task, how do you trigger it? That's the thing that I'm looking for. What do we need to do to trigger the snippet? Let's have a look at. I'm a little bit confused as to how to. I think we need to update the README seems to have broken as well on the marketplace listing because none of the images are working anymore. No mention of Task Runner Explorer. There's our build.cake script, and that is being shown. And if we go over to 2022, we go to View, Other Windows. There we go, Task Runner Explorer. Oh, and that's right, because we don't have anything. So if we double click on this, do. That seemed to work. So that part's working. So what isn't working? Let's go through them. I'm going to take some notes here. So according to this, we have Task Runner Explorer. We have bindings that will get created in our .config file, our cake.config file. It'll perform the installation of cake if it's not already there. We have template installers. Use cake, no, see that one doesn't work. So we've got 2019, 2022. Task Runner Explorer seems to be working. Bindings, haven't checked the bindings. If we come over here to 2019 and we pick this up, bindings we want to happen when the clean build happens. So when we clean the build, we want to run clean. So if we were to do clean solution, then it's running the clean. So that part works. So the bindings work in 2019. So if we were to go over to 2022 and we were to create a binding here to the clean, file has unsaved changes in editor. Yes. So that's created a cake.config file that has a mapping between that. So if we run the clean here, it should run the .NET Cake build for the default target, which it did, and then it runs a clean. So that binding works in 2022 as well. So far, so good. The template installers, according to the documentation, choose Cake build from the build menu to quickly install the default template scripts or Cake configuration files into your solution. So that obviously works on here. So I'm going to delete that because, well, I can. And then Cake build, install cake.config file. Cake.config file is successfully downloaded. I might need to refresh that though. Where did it? Yes. So let's go here and do a git extension. Lots of uncommitted changes. Let's see. So it has created it, and it's created it at the top level. So that part works in 2019, although it didn't hook up what I thought it was going to hook up, but that's fine. If I were to go here and say add existing item and go to root project, and then this is the default config file. Okay. Happy days. So that part works. I think. Did what it said it was going to do. What's missing though in 2022 is that menu item doesn't exist. It's not there. So that's not working in 2022. What other functionality is there? There's the extension includes an item template for build scripts and for project templates cakes module. So that part is working. So we've seen that in action. We've seen the item template get added for build.cake file and so on. So that part to me looks like it's working. Icon appearing here is working. Icon appearing on the icon in build.cake works and works. Icon in solution explorer works in 2019, doesn't work in 2022. Snippets. Let's see if we can figure out how the snippets work. Let's see if we can find an example of a snippet, and then we can build from there. So in the shared project, I think, task runner and type. Let's search in here for snippet. What do we have? argument snippet. What does it do? So the argument snippet exists within the snippets.packageDef. So the shortcut is arg. Okay. So if we were to go here then and say arg, oh, how do we trigger it? Code snippet for argument in cake. Snippet type is an expansion. Nils is saying, did the snippets work in 2019? I seem to not get them to work locally. I haven't heard that they don't work, but that doesn't really mean anything. Okay, hyphen yes. If I were searching here for snippets, there's 2 issues. Search for snippet. There's 2 open issues. One is for cake.frosting. So that's a request from Pascal. That one's fine. Snippet. That's got nothing to do with it. I don't know, Nils. It could be that it just doesn't work, but then well, that's a bug we need to fix then. Has anyone got 2017 kicking about to test to see if it works in 2017? It could be that we've broken something. Because what I'm assuming is that there's this snippets. Oh, hold on. Oh, no. Hold on. That reads to me as though it's only including the C# snippets. So this one is for a method alias. So CKMA in a C# file. So if we were to go here and do method alias CKMA, that would be on say here. CKMA. No, it didn't really do what I wanted. CKMA. No. So the method alias one doesn't come up either. Then another one for property alias CKPA. Assuming that one's not going to work either. No. Okay. So none of the snippets work. But how would we know? So the snippets package def is combined into the overall process here. So the file path is snippets.packagedef. So from this folder, well, that's where it gets complicated because now a shared project. But in theory, that would go up to our shared project. It would go into, where does that live? Not snippets, package def. That's in, oh no, because they were linked files. So in Visual Studio we added them, snippets, and then there. And then we created those as linked items 22, 22, 21. So they are, that should be there. I'm not convinced that that part works. I have ReSharper installed. Could it be that it breaks the VS snippets? So I don't have ReSharper installed. So on that basis, I'm going to say no. I'm more wondering whether it's something in the manifest that's causing it to not flow through. Because there's a couple of things here that seem to work. Well, there's a couple of things that aren't working at all. So the snippets aren't working in either 2019 or 2022. What else is there meant to be? So the other thing in here are icons. So there's one. Is that not a duplicate? I think I've got two entries in there for the same thing. Two entries for the map component. Taking that one out. So in here, there is lots of templates in here for add-in template, module template, add-in test. I think I saw all of them. Okay. So the question is, where do we go from here? We need to figure out why the template installers aren't working. So let's try something new. Let's come over here and remove the locally installed extension, and we'll try debugging the solution directly out of 2022 and with a developer version and see if that makes any difference. That might help us diagnose what's going on. So is that doing what it said it was going to do? It did. So we're going to open 2022. We will open the solution in 2022 and attempt to debug it directly and see if that helps. We'll do file, open this one. Okay. We'll set this one as the startup project, and then we'll say run. So this is slightly different in terms of how we've been running it, because we've been running the compiled we've been installing the compiled v6 in the hope that the functionality would all be there. But this time round, we are compiling it directly within Visual Studio 2022, and we're running a local developer instance that is housing that new extension. So if we look at what's installed into this instance, then we should have the cake extension for Visual Studio 22. Interesting that it's shown it as grayed. That's good. That's interesting to see. So in this developer instance, if we say file, open our well, that's not doing what I thought it was doing. No, I don't. Oh, it hasn't actually started it yet. Interesting. So what was that grayed out icon? Ooh, here we go. Okay, so open a project or solution to this guy. Oh, so now we've got a developer instance. What this is showing. Okay. So if I go to extensions on this instance, but extensions, manage extensions, installed. Okay, so it's not grayed out there. Interesting. Okay, so we do build, still not there. That part's there, but the cake icon isn't on the file. And assuming if we come up to here, do arg, it's not. No. Okay. Okay then. Let's have a look at some of the warning that we were seeing then. And that could shed some light on it. Lots of will only be done on the thread. Lots of issues about that. Bit one. Accessing solution should only be done on the main thread. Call microsoft.visualstudio.shell.threadhelper.throw if not all, not on UI thread first. And the fix is fixed. Oh, that's added. Oh, I see. It added the helper. That wouldn't have been stopping it from working, though, would it? Surely not. Surely not. But stranger things have happened. But there's a lot of them. So get service synchronously blocks. So Nils is in agreement with me that this shouldn't stop it from working. There's lots of them though. Active package downgrade. Oh, that's just for the analyzers. There's nothing in the warnings that would immediately scream, you've broken something. So how would we begin to fault find this? because I mean I'm assuming so there is a breakpoint here, which is the install .NET tool PowerShell bootstrapper command. Yeah, that was my thought too, Nils. But let's set a breakpoint on here and see if it at least gets to here. Because in my mind, that command within the cake package.cs should get triggered. He says. And we could test that in Visual Studio 2019 by running the developer instance there. So I didn't see it get triggered. But if we click build, okay. I don't know what that proves. Oh no, it did. Hold on. Okay. I'd really like for that menu to disappear. But okay. So install .NET bootstrapper command initialize. So if I hit F11, it's not on my keyboard, which is this one. Then it's going to initialize a new instance with that command in it. So does F12 work here? It does. First thing, okay. It did get called. Does that mean it's now there? No. Doesn't mean it's there. It means the code's getting called, but the menu item isn't getting created. So and we maybe never got far enough. Let's do it again. And let's click start again. Step through all of it and see if we can actually see the menu item getting created. If we click Cake My Module again, I'm not going to move the mouse this time or click on anything. I'm just going to see if that initialize async gets called. Okay, so we're not touching anything. Not doing anything. Wait for it. Wait for it. Okay, so it did get called. Okay, so if I hit play at this point and hit Fn, then package is a package. The command service is a command service. So obviously, if we do this, then menu command ID is equal to menu command ID, GUIDs, beautiful, F10, menu item, got a big GUID in it, check, properties, visible is true, empty, command service dot add command menu item. How do we know that that menu item has got the things in it that we want? Which part? I'm expecting to see the words cake build in here. Property value. Nope. These. Nope. I may be expecting too much here. Provider initialize. I'm assuming we never get a callback. This function is the callback used to execute the command. That's obviously never going to get called. But it is instantiating that. So the command set GUID is this thing. Have a wee sneaky peek at that GUID. Oh no, that exists in multiple places. Oh, this is where the values come into play. First, I did see a value. So the values, the menu command ID is 4129. 4129 is this thing, which when you look it up is this thing. So I'm assuming that's how it's coupling the two things together. And in here, we're going to have multiple links to that. Fine. But they don't get hooked up. Okay. That GUID that I searched for, wasn't it? I think we're missing some link in our new project that we don't have in the new one. So the VS, we've already looked for that, haven't we? The VS command table. Put those two things together. So in there, it's compile, include that, link to there. Oh no, hold on. That's a C# file. Oh no. Was that not one of the ones, Nils, that we put together where we weren't clear on whether that should be in the shared project or whether that should be in the metadata? But then if it works here for, it works for VS 2019, then you would imagine that it would work for 2022. But let's go side by side on this just to make sure. So it's autogen design time dependent upon because all the other C# stuff went into the shared project. But if we go back to the issue that you created, then cake build cake-vs issues 2022, there was a link here, VSCT file, metadata files, release notes, and VSCT files should be moved to a shared directory. Because they've got just the VSCT file in there. what did it say? Metadata files, release notes, icons, and VSCT files to be moved to a shared directory and added as linked files to the VSCT v6 project. That's what this image is showing us. So here's the v6 project. We're going to add these items into there. And that's what we did. So we go back over here. We stop the execution here. Then this is a linked icon, a linked item to the metadata file. And we did the same thing over here. But I'm wondering whether this vs command table.cs file needs to live in the shared project. But if that's the case, then the v6 synchronizer file is going to break at that point, because, well, it's going to break. But what is the VS file? It's the big XML file, more of a XAML file, that's then generating this vscommand.cs file that I'm assuming we're referencing from multiple places. Yeah, so in here we are then doing stuff. And then within this document, for metadata files, set the build action to content and set include in v6 to true. So did I do all of that? So here we set the build action to VSCT compile and the include in v6 to false. We did that. And then over here, we did the same thing. Not sure then. And there was mention in here about a breaking changes or things not working. Nils is saying he dropped off the edge of the internet there. Yes, the problem does still persist, yes. So what I went through and verified is that the compile settings for both projects are the same. I wondered whether the linked C# script or C# file that we have might be causing problems, but then I wondered, it's working in one, so it should work in the other. So yeah, I'm not clear on why it wouldn't appear, because to all intents and purposes, I mean, what I can see is that the code is being executed. I mean, it is instantiating the command. That command just never seems to appear within the UI. I don't think it's just a timing thing. I mean, I'm assuming that we get all the way down to here. So we're going to open You mentioned an activity log, Nils. Is that where we would see any errors that are being thrown as well? If so, where does one find that activity log? Is the VSCT packed in the V6? No, it's not. Because the article that we followed explicitly told us not to. Because what it says is for VSCT files, set build action to VSCT compile, which we've done, and don't include in V6. So we've explicitly stated that we don't include it. So we get in here, we get in here, we get all the way down to there. So what I can see, that's fixed. Now it wouldn't be something to do with where it's trying to add the menus, would it? As in, is there any chance that those have changed? View project build. I'm going to go through these other ones and make sure it hasn't appeared in one of the other ones. Extension window. No. What was going through my head there is whether, how does it know where to put it? Yeah, like what's the chances that this has changed in 2022? Visual Studio 2022. This from a while back. One menu. Log in the app data for the normal VS. App data. Okay, we'll maybe come back to that. What I'm currently wondering is whether this identifier has changed. I can't imagine that it would have, but what's the chances? Surely not. Visual Studio 2022 menu item identifiers. I'm building a VS extension. I wish to have a command under the extensions menu. I'm able to add my command to help, but not. Thank you for sharing your feedback. Quick response. The details at. Don't think that's what I want, is it? No. What's this one? That's where we are, right? Surely that would be mentioned in here, right? You would have thought it would have been mentioned. I can't imagine that that would have changed. How would one test that? How about we put it in the yeah, exactly that, Nils. I would have expected that as well. I would have expected exactly the same. Now you mentioned a folder, C users, app data, Microsoft, Visual Studio. So here's the experimental one. Then actions. Oh, hold on, what's that? Copy. Paste. Does this one work in? So I'm all about that, yes. But that's not going to work in 2022. And I can't debug. Or is that just to get to the folder? If it's just to get to the folder, then yes, okay. Let's download it. The extension is already installed for all applicable products. Okay. View. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I'm gonna close this Visual Studio. Oh, hold on. Was it there? Did I just completely miss it? 2019. It was the very. I completely missed it. I was comparing it to a screenshot and it was saying open and open with, and I think I was getting confused by that. Oh, it's right there. Like that. Dope. So if there were any errors, you unable to find activity log.xml. Okay, I guess that's fine. But let's see if we were in the right place anyway. So roaming, Microsoft Visual Studio. We were in roughly the right place. But I'm also not seeing an activity log at that root level. I'm not in roaming. I'm not in roaming. I'm having a great night so far. Microsoft Visual Studio. So am I in the right place now? See users, app data, roaming, Microsoft Visual Studio. So there is indeed no 16.0 activity log. There is an activity log.xml file in the subfolder. What sort of thing in here? A lot of XML. Nils is saying, did I mention writing VS extensions is not fun at all? I mean, I'd heard that. I'd heard that that wasn't the most fun at the fair. But at this point, I'm sort of tempted to start a new Visual Studio 2022 extension and see if we can get a menu item to appear. Hold on. Oh no, that's that one. I was like, why is that working? And to see if we can get any cake menu items to appear. Oh no, that's interesting. So in the empty 2019, with no solution loaded, the cake build menu items are there. In an empty 2022 instance, there's nothing there. What's the right next course of action? I don't know. Yes, the menu item is indeed missing. So when there's no solution open, the build item menu item is there. In 2019, it is there, but the only thing that's in there is cake build. So I think our extension is, in the absence of that being there, it normally wouldn't be there. because our menu item is there. That's why it's getting added. But in 2022, it's not creating that empty menu item. Because if we were to go over here and do extensions, manage extensions, and uninstall Cake, if I were to take this one out, which would need me to close 2019. Then I think if I open it, then the build menu is not going to be there at all. Tempted to send a tweet to Mads Christensen or Matt Lacey, because one of those two might know the answer that I'm looking for here. Fine. If I open this up, then yeah, so the build menu is not there at all. I'm going to send a retweet here and say at Mads Christensen, at Mr. Lacey. Quick question. Has anything changed with regard to adding menu items for a Visual Studio extension 2022? Trying to upgrade an extension to work in 2022 and a menu item that worked in 2019 in the build menu is no longer. Let's just send a wee tweet. Mad did offer to do a live migration on an existing extension on one of his videos. Oh, I mean, that would be good. Let's follow. We have able to get most functionality working in the migration to 2022, but a couple of items are giving us some problems. Unhappy smiley face. Tweet. Let's see if they come back, shall we? And see where we get to. So let's maybe Google for Visual Studio 2022 menu extension, add menu item. See if anything comes up in here. I mean, there's videos from Mads Christensen that I should probably go and watch. Create an extension with a menu command. Prerequisites, create a menu command. Let's have a look. So create a V6 project name first menu command. You can find, well, let's maybe, like I said, let's do this for a new extension. So let's do file, new project in 2022. So we're going to say extension. And what's that going to give us? It's thinking. Extension pack. V6 project, that's what we want in C#. Do it. Do it. Let's create a new one from scratch and see what it does. Okay. So in here, create a V6 project name, blah, blah, search for V6, add a custom command item template. When the project opens, add a custom command item template named first command. Add new item, extensibility command. So we're going to go add new item. I'm going to search in here for command. And we're going to say first command. I think that's what you told me to do. First command. Beautiful. Okay. Happy days. Build the project and start debugging. Command. Okay, so starting the experimental instance, and we should see that in here when we go to extensions, manage extensions, you will see the first menu item command. So it'll be called something different because I didn't stick to that naming convention. That's fine though. So extensions, manage extensions, installed V6 project 1. Happy days. Right, so back over here. Now let's update the command handler to start Notepad. Stop debugging, open up. I don't really care about what it wants. Maybe I do. I don't really care where it puts it, but I do want it to have where does it, what am I missing? Try it out. When you start debugging, project tools invoke, or what's tools invoke? Tools. Where did the word invoke come from? Oh, it's there, look. So invoke button command. Now that is, now what caused it to end up in the tools folder? See if we can understand this part. Let's open this again. So if we do tools, invoke first command. Okay. So what caused that to get put into there? Now go to the tools menu. That's not particularly useful. Tools add-ins. Oh, that's for creating top level one. So I want to add it into the build. So if we go back to this one, let's open up the solution again. Take Visual Studio solution. So within the definition of our in the definition of our menus, we had the install config file. If I search for that, then that gets added into the VSCT file. So did that create one of those? It did. So in there, we have that in the buttons collection. So then in the buttons collection of this thing, we had a reference to the I've already forgotten what we were calling it. This one. So in here, we had a reference to this thing. So I'm going to create a new one. Copy. And these are our buttons. So there's buttons and there's menus and there's groups. Oh, okay. Oh, it's here, look. Okay, so that's the tools folder. Okay. So the button then has a reference to that thing. Fine. So if we change that to be this one then, so what happens if I just change that to there? Does that work? Let's see what that does. So if we go back to here, see what that does. So in the build menu, oh, that's not build, invoke first command. Okay, so what's different between that one and the other one? Because that worked. So commands have the concept of groups, groups have the concept of buttons, but we also had the concept of menus. So what's a menu? What's the difference between a menu and a button? So a menu is the flyout, the sub menu. Yes, okay. So at the minute we have a button. I have to write some of this down. So close you. So currently we have a group and the group has a reference group the button has a parent whose my menu group matches this thing up here. So this GUID here is a complete misnomer. That that GUID just seems to collect them together. Now the parent GUID is SHL main menu. So SHL main menu isn't referenced anywhere else other than that. So that can't be a special. That can't be a special thing, right? Buttons, menu, groups. Maybe it is because it's the same over here. So what we're really looking for in here is top menu group. Okay. There's some mapping thing going on here. GUID symbol. GUID symbol. Okay, so there is a mapping going on there. Don't fully understand what that is yet. But again, my menu group has a button has a parent that is that. Fine. So my top menu group has a group and nothing contained within it. So how does top menu group link to this? Well, okay, so the menu that is the cake submenu has a parent that is that guy. Okay. So let's borrow this and say that over here, commands also has menus. So now I'm just trying to recreate the structure. So the menu that is submenu has a link to the top menu group, and then the button contained within that must have, no, button doesn't have mention of it, but it must, surely. Okay. How does a button exist within a menu group then? The button that is so very confused now. So there is a menu whose parent is the top menu group, and the top menu group is what we created here. I'm lost. Don't think this is the kind of thing to try and do on a live stream, but I want to try and recreate it. So start again. Right. We have a group called top menu group. Top menu group is referenced by a menu called cake submenu. And that has the text that is cake build. It has an ID of cake submenu. So cake submenu then has a submenu group. Maybe that's what I was missing. Okay, so we need another group over here called submenu group. The top menu group has nothing. Oh, because that would need to be this one. Fine. So then submenu group then has that. And then submenu group then has a button. Okay. So then the button that we have, which is this one, rather than pointing there, wants to point at the submenu group. Now, I'm going to run that, but I think that might be broken because I don't have a mapping between the two. It's going to tell me I don't have an ID for it. Undefined GUID. I think if we go back here and we search for this guy, then we need to have an identifier somewhere for that, which is going to be in here. We need a GUID symbol. If we go back here and look at the parent GUID symbol for this thing, then let's put this back to being, put that into here, into here. And what else did we add? We added a menu which needs to have this. I still think that's going to be broken. That's okay. So cake submenu doesn't have an identifier, but we need it to have one similar to this thing. So if we go back to here, then I don't know how to, well, my menu group is no longer going to exist, is it? No. My menu group is now this one, which is this one. Getting closer. And then copy cake submenu. I don't think that just needs to be unique. Undefined element. And group. Parent top. Submit. I think I might just be going around in circles here, but go. I wonder if that works. So now under build, we've got cake build, and we've got invoke. Why? Why does that work? Because build, cake build, invoke build, that works. But our other instance, it doesn't. I'm going to open another 2022 instance here, and I'm going to we should check that. This VSCST. We should do a comparison of the settings. Go over here, recent projects and settings. That's kind of where I was going as well, nils. So if we were to look at this thing, really like for you to, because it's a linked file probably. VSCT compile, do not copy, custom tool. So we don't have a custom tool hooked up to it, but I'm guessing that's fine. And then install root. Everything else is the same. It's a little bit concerning that I click on the file and it takes me to there. I'm wondering if that's just a symptom of okay, so that's maybe what I opened it up from. So if we suspect it's because this isn't included in the v6, how would we confirm that? I've just taken that custom tool out of there, just as a sanity check. Let's build this again. And that shouldn't make any, that by itself shouldn't make any difference, right? See if you just work now. I'm going to be more than a little bit annoyed. Now we didn't check to see what other code paths the command itself was doing. So doing here, it had a GUID, it was finding the package, it was finding the command service, and then it was adding the command. That to me looked exactly the same. Initialize. So we hit some breakpoints and then build. Oh no, that's the other one. There was a moment there when I thought it had worked. I was ready to punch something, but it's not. That's the other one. So if we do a side-by-side comparison in terms of how they are initialized, then there is a switch to main thread async. And then from there, oh, we've got that here, switch to main thread async. Then it was calling shell service menus.initialize. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I want to look at the command itself, which is here. So down here, doing initialize. Okay. Instance equals new command, command service. So we're not doing, it's not the same, but does it need to be? There's definite similarities, but it's not exactly the same. So did we need to make it more similar? It's also got an execute method. Where's that called from? That's called from, oh, that's just the command itself. And it's a new menu command, whereas this one is private first command. This menu command, callback ID. So that part's all the same. But if there was a problem with the button, then you would have thought it would have shown the button, but when you click it, it just wouldn't work. But what we're seeing is that it's just never added to the collection of buttons. So, and let's go to this folder and see if there's any additional mention of the VSCT. That's clearly not going to work. Sure. We search in here for VSCT. Debug, bug, nope. It does some stuff, and then in there we are VSCT compile has got an include. That's all it's got. Now, hour 1, add more stuff. That's because, now hold on. Okay. BSC com file. And it was a link because it was it's not included directly. I wonder if let's try one thing. Let's try one thing before we close up for the evening. So if we go back to here and we remove the link and do an add existing item, and we go up to our shared metadata and we look for all files, we look for this guy, that's gonna fail because it doesn't have the GUID. Let's do an add existing item for this guy. So I'm effectively not adding it as a link anymore. I'm adding it as an actual file. And if we go into here and say, not going to let me change that until the BS compile. So at the minute I've just referenced it directly. Now whether that copied it or not, I don't know. File not found. That's because that path is different. I don't care enough about that just now. I'm going to take that bitmap out. I just want to see if the I want to see if it gets added at all. But then again, if that was the problem, it wouldn't have worked in. Well, no, actually, we haven't tested the new version in 2019. We're kind of assuming that it works. Yeah, we haven't actually tested it in 2019. Not with the newly compiled version. So now, if I go to build, that's still the fake one, but then it hasn't called this code yet. So let's let it go through that. And it still didn't work. Okay. That didn't help. So even as a non-linked file, it's still not showing up. So that points the finger squarely at, I think, something in this code path not initializing the command correctly. But or why? But anyway, that feels like a natural stopping point. Still more work to do here. What would be a good way of putting this? Is it worth me just putting all this together in a PR as it stands, Nils. Would you want to look at this and see if you can see anything that I'm breaking? I mean, I could put it up as a PR so that we could both work on it, if that would be something that you would be interested in. I'd like to have a peek at it, yes, okay. Excuse me for yawning. It's been a long day. Let me get this put up as a PR. Well, I'll maybe undo some of the things that I've just broken just now. But let me get this put up as a PR, and perhaps we could both take some time to look at it over the next week or so and see what we can come up with. But for now, that's all I have. In terms of a recap, for those that have stayed with us, trying to get the Cake extension for Visual Studio working in Visual Studio 2022. At least some of it's functioning, but other parts of it aren't, and it's not immediately clear to me why that is. So some more work to be done, but we spent most of the evening trying to figure out why the cake build menu structure isn't behaving the way that we expected it to. It's not the cake build menu item isn't appearing at all in the 2022 version of this extension. But I've also come to the realization that we haven't tested the 2019 version either to see if it's appearing there. But maybe I've closed it down now. But let's do one other test, which is running the 2019 extension in Visual Studio 2019 to see what functionality is and isn't working. So let's make sure that I don't have the Cake extension installed directly. I think I uninstalled it. Yeah, so we don't have it. So if I were to do File, Browse to here, if I were to run this directly in 2019, I'll close off some of this while I'm here. If I were to go and put this as the startup project and hit go, what does it do? Opening. If it does not work, we should test whether. Oh, that's a good point. Thinking. So it doesn't matter, let's just open something. So in here, what do we get in the build menu? So we click on build. Build. Build? No, doesn't seem to be there, does it? File, new project. Have we been barking up the wrong tree, Nils? So item templates, the project templates do seem to be there. So why then, therefore, does it not work in Visual Studio 2019 at all? So yeah, we should test it on the current development branch and see what happens, because that would appear to be broken, but that's going to need to be a different day. Let me write that down. Test latest develop branch for cake build menu. And Nils is saying, I have a hunch at least snippets seem to be broken in develop. Okay then. Fun. Okay, so there's investigations to be had. For now, I'm going to say that we're done. So appreciate folks hanging out tonight. Fun as always. But for now, I'm going to sign off, and I will speak to you all on the internet. Thank you very much. Bye bye.